Welcome to the drawing board. I'm your host and in-house artist, Erin Leffler. Well, you may notice one of my props is a little bit different today. And that's because I'm really excited to introduce you to my guest, because my guest was a part of something that has been one of my favorite shows for years. And she's acted in so many other amazing things too. She's on Broadway, and I highly suggest once Broadway reopens to try to find what shows she's in to go see her. Please welcome my guest, actress Adrienne Walker. Hi there!
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Now, for kids who don't know what you've been in or what you do, why don't you give us a little description of what you do?
Hello, everyone. I am a Broadway actor. I have been in The Lion King. I played Nala in The Lion King, and I also took a break from The Lion King to go do the Broadway revival of Kiss Me, Kate. So basically, I go in for auditions most of my life, and then when I actually book something, I learn the role, and then I get fitted for costumes, and then I get to perform the role on stage. So that's basically the short end of what I do for a living.
That's amazing. And those are great shows. I know Lion King's probably more of one that people would know, but Kiss Me Kate has been around for quite some time. It's a great show. Just in case any of you kids haven't heard of it, I highly suggest asking your parents or going on the computer and looking it up, because it is a very wonderful show. Now, I have to ask, how long have you been acting?
Well, I have been acting professionally since 2011. I did have a job in 2008, right out of college, where I was in the chorus of Porgy and Bess, and because I was an opera major, I had every intention of singing opera. Yeah, so I did that, and then I took a year off, and I went to grad school and continued to pursue opera there. But my first professional job was Porgy and Bess again, but it was in a musical theater setting in Chicago. And since then, I've been just doing musical theater.
Oh my stars, that's so cool. And I've never had anyone on here that majored in opera, so that is really amazing. And I can't imagine that that's easy either.
No, it is very stressful, and there's a lot involved. There's a lot to learn. Basically, I was a music major with a concentration in vocal performance, and there's also a bit of a waiting period, because when you're preparing to do opera, it's kind of like the Olympics of singing. So you train and you train and you train, and then when you're maybe like 28 or 35, you begin to really start to book work, because your voice is still developing. Right. And you're still training and still working on that craft. So it takes a little time for your career to start. And I really just didn't want to wait. And I really loved my cast in Porgy and Bess at Court Theater. And so they told me about the theater world, and I went in for a few general auditions. And that's an audition where a theater company is looking to cast their season. And so they invite actors from all walks of life to come in and just sing their hearts out, or do a monologue, or both. And then from there, they'll call you back in for their actual season. So I went to a few generals and kind of got started that way.
That's amazing. And that sounds like a lot of hard work that went into that. I can't even imagine. Wow, my mind is blown. Now, you just mentioned with all that you had went to school to major in especially vocals, which I think is absolutely incredible. This is a topic I love getting to talk about, because within the industry, there's kind of like a little bit of a battle that goes on with that, because some people say you need to go to school, and then some people say, do whatever works best for you. If you got the talent, then people will see it. Do you think that school is ultimately necessary, or do you think kids should be able to learn in the way that they feel most comfortable with?
Well, I definitely think no matter what, kids should learn in the way they're most comfortable with. But with the question of school, I think that school does provide a lot of really concentrated training, but it also provides a lot of diverse training as well. Because my undergrad degree was a Bachelor of Arts, so I had to take science courses and anthropology and women's studies, and so that gave me a diverse background, and I'm grateful for that. Does it help me with my career? Sometimes, not always. But I also have colleagues that didn't go to college, but had opportunities to perform in high school or in middle school, had a dance background, and they were able to fashion their career off of that. That's not everyone's story. Sometimes we need a little more time to go to school, to make the connection. Sometimes based on the school you go to, you can get connections, and that helps forward your career. So I definitely think it's up to the individual. I am not of the school of thought that everyone needs to go to school, everyone needs to go to college. I don't believe that. And if you're not given a scholarship, or if you don't come from an affluent family that can afford for you to go, you might just get stuck with student loans. And this type of career is very competitive, and it's very difficult to get on a level where you can provide for yourself and be comfortable. So I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer, but my advice is to go with your heart. And if your heart is in learning a bit more and going to school, do that. And if your heart is in just to jump in there and move to New York, do that, because you really never know what's going to happen. And fear of the unknown is not going to get you anywhere.
That was absolutely perfect. I love how you put that about following what feels good in your heart, because I think that's really important. I think that schooling can be absolutely great, and I also think that maybe if it doesn't suit you, that's absolutely great. So that was perfect. That's exactly what I love to hear. Now, you had just mentioned something that is a topic I love getting to talk about. You had mentioned that it's a highly competitive industry, which with anything in acting, arts, it's highly competitive, whether on social media, whether competing for a job. It can be tough.
Yeah.
I think that competition should be everything in order for kids to get to the point that they want to be, or should healthy competition be more of a thing where they're able to learn and make friends from fellow creatives?
You know what? It's the latter. Absolutely, hands down, no matter what, it's the latter, because there's enough room for everyone. So healthy competition is great because you're always striving to do your best. You're always striving to be better than you were before. But the negative competition, where you're concerned about your colleagues and what they're doing and what they're up to and how you measure up against them, really doesn't help you. It doesn't serve you. It puts your energies into places that just waste your time, really. And I know it's difficult because we have social media and we have all kinds of ways that we can compare and decide, where we fit in. How many likes did we get today? Like that's difficult. It's hard to manage that kind of world, but we all still have something to offer, no matter how many likes we get, no matter how many opportunities we get, no matter who booked the role or who booked the audition. I went in for my first Broadway audition in 2014, and I was living in Chicago at the time, and I got called into New York, and I was so excited and nervous, and it was just everything was weighing on this opportunity. And I got in past the second round, and then the third round, and then it was just down to me and one other actor. And I was like, oh my God. And what was great about that experience was that she and I were both so kind to each other. And it was nice. It was a warm environment. And she ended up booking it because she could do the dance way better than I could. And I was heartbroken. I really was, but I wasn't upset with her. I was like, well, it was for her. And 2 years later, I made my Broadway debut as Nala. So it just wasn't meant for me at that time. But what I learned from that experience is that it doesn't mean never. It just means not right now. And that's why healthy competition is great, because I didn't make an enemy that day, being rude to her or, being negative with her. I made a connection. And if we ever see each other again, it will be a friendly connection and a good memory.
I love that. And that's such a wonderful thing, the way that you put it about it wasn't your time yet. I love that, because sometimes that's a hard thing to be able to take a step back and say, like, that person is a little bit better than I am in this, that just
Yes.
wants to get better at it.
Yes.
That. Now, along with that, something I always love pairing with it is because they kind of go hand in hand. A lot of times we often face rejection, no matter if it's for a job, if it's a comment that we get online, it's hard to deal with. Do you think that kids should be taking rejection personally, or is it something that they can more use as like a learning tool for down the road?
You know what? Rejection is tough. It will probably always be tough unless you have, unless you're tough as nails and nothing ever bothers you. But I haven't met anyone like that yet.
No.
I definitely don't think that rejection is something you should take personally. It doesn't mean that you won't. It doesn't mean that you won't have moments where something someone says, whether you know them or not, really digs. But it's helpful to me to remember who I am, what I'm capable of, how full of a person I am without whatever the rejection is. And you mentioned comments on the internet, and the internet is it can be a scary place. It can be a very fun and exciting place, but it can also be pretty scary. Someone gave me the advice, and I'm sure you've heard it before: never read the comments.
Yeah.
Because people are hiding behind their, computer screens or their phones, and they feel safe in that way. And sometimes, it's like a little crab in a shell, and not a crab, a turtle in a shell. And, they can snap at you and they can go back in their shell safe and protected. And so it's just up to you to control yourself and what bothers you and what doesn't bother you.
Absolutely. And that's such a wonderful way of putting it. I haven't really had anybody put it that way before. So thank you for talking about that, because I feel like, especially in this day and age, social media is a big thing in the entertainment industry. So it's hard to remember that at sometimes, that you shouldn't take it personally and try to avoid reading those comments if you can.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, because a lot of times I tend to find like actors or musicians, they draw a lot of inspiration from people that they watched growing up, from parents, teachers, or even other actors that they really admired. Was there somebody in particular, or multiple people for you, that you found really helped you get your footing in your career, and you find you incorporating your likes about what they do into your style?
I'm inspired by so many people. I'm constantly inspired. Like, I spent the morning watching some YouTube videos and I was like bawling, because I'm just inspired by vulnerability. But anyway, that's not the question you asked. As I was growing up, I listened to music all the time, constantly. And when I wasn't listening to music, I was singing around the house. And the music I was listening to was mainly Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. The big belters. And I'm talking about 1990s Mariah Carey, okay?
Yes.
That I could listen to Always Be My Baby every single day. I'll never get tired of it. So I was definitely vocally inspired by those two artists. And I don't know, it's a hard question to answer, because I could just rattle off like 50 people that inspired me. But I would say I'm most inspired by people who honor who they are, and try to walk with that in life, because it's hard. It's hard to be you. It's hard to be you and to feel comfortable with that and to own that. It's really difficult, and people who do that inspire me so much.
I love that. And I have to be honest, those are two of my favorite music inspirations as well. So I got like so excited when you mentioned them. Now I have to ask, because you have gotten to do so many cool things, but this is a topic that people don't usually ask. I get asked a lot when I guest at Comic-Cons by kids. They think the only way to make it big, to do anything where people will notice, is to only work 24/7, that you can't do anything fun outside of that. So I love getting to talk with my guests about what type of hobbies they have outside of work, because I want kids to know it's okay to do other things besides work.
Oh, absolutely. It's actually healthy for you to do other things outside of work. And one of my favorite things to do is to cook a new dish, like to try out something new. I follow this vegan blog called Sweet Potato Soul, and I'm not a vegan. I'm not vegan. I try to eat plant-based every now and then, but that doesn't matter. But I follow her blog because her food is so colorful and it's beautiful and it's tasty. And every time I try something new, it's delicious. So I trust her, you know? But yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do, is to just, to cook something new, to go to the grocery store, get all the ingredients, bring it back, try it, and then sit down and eat it and watch a new movie, like a rom-com or something.
Oh, those are great. I've only had one other person say cooking, so that is awesome. I can't cook for the life of me, but that is fantastic.
That's okay. You're a brilliant artist, so you don't have to.
We all have different strengths, and cooking I just have found is not mine. But I have to say, you can definitely tell you love it, because on your social media, they look absolutely incredible every time you post something about it.
Oh, thank you.
It's a lot of fun. Now, I have to ask, because this is something I think is so cool. You act live. A lot of people are acting on a camera, so it's recorded. They can go and redo takes and everything. But you get to do it live in front of an audience. What's it like knowing that there may be a kid in the audience watching what you're doing, and they can look at their parents and be like, that's me. I can do that one day.
Yeah. Oh, man. Wow, what a thrilling thing. Because I remember our parents took us to see Aida when I was in high school, and I think that might have been one of my first times having that feeling of, I at that point I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, mind you. Like I sang all the time, but I was also considering being a vet and all kinds of things. So I still didn't know what I wanted to do, which I would like to say it's okay if you're in high school and you're not sure what you want to do with your life yet. It will work out, I promise you. I've actually never thought about that on stage, and now when we go back, I probably will. That wow, there might be a kid in the audience that sees themselves. I have that moment for myself when I watch Simba go up the rock. I think about all the young Black kids in the audience that might be seeing for the first time a Black man represented in that way, you know, before pre-Black Panther, you know.
Yeah.
And it just makes me emotional when I think about it. But I think that representation is so important, because if you don't have the imagination to believe that you can be anything, it's helpful to see other people do it first, so that so the windows are open for you. So it makes you feel like, okay, I can do this. I can achieve this. She did it. He did it. There's something for me there. I think that it's powerful. I think it's important. And I am very grateful to be someone that can provide that for someone else.
I love that. And that's something I love getting to talk about too, because I think diversity and representation in media is so important, because if we always see the same stories, it's really hard for kids to be able to grasp onto that. They can do whatever they put their mind to. Mm-hmm. So I love that you brought that up, especially because before Hamilton and In the Heights and all those wonderful shows, the most diverse show that was on Broadway is The Lion King, because that's been one of the longest running, that has probably the most diverse cast of actors and actresses up on that stage. And I think that's absolutely incredible. What was it like getting to work a part of a show that was that diverse and that culturally accepting? I think it's beautiful.
You know what? It's an amazing experience, because I remember when I was rehearsing for the show, and the director asked me, what differences I had gathered between the movie and the Broadway show. And the most clear, I guess, that I could, I'm losing my words, but what I could focus on the most was the music. And the music is so different and powerful because of Lebo M, and because they used his vision, his South African vision, and put it fully into the musical more so than they ever did for the film. And, you know, being a Black individual growing up in America, from Georgia, my parents, we don't have really strong ties to our roots. I don't know where my ancestors came from. And so for me to be a part of a show that digs deep into the roots of South Africa, it just makes me feel connected in a way that is very meaningful. So yeah.
That's beautiful. And you know, I love that you brought up about Lebo M's vision, because that was something any of us 90s people know, that The Lion King was a big thing in the 90s. That's what we grew up with. And there was actually a secondary CD called Rhythm of the Pride Lands. Not a lot of people know about that because they didn't really make light of it. I, however, had that CD and made my parents play it so many times that it ended up getting scratched, and I had to get a new one because my parents were so big on teaching me about diversity and being accepting of everyone. And I just fell in love with the culture and with the songs, because his vision of what he came up with for the show was just amazing. And
Yeah.
I remember being so excited, like going to the theater and hearing for the first time the songs that were on Rhythm of the Pride Lands and getting to see it finally on stage, because that's amazing. And getting to hear a vision and a sound from a different place that maybe you're not familiar with, it's just something that's really cool. And especially when you can connect your roots to that, I think that's really amazing. Now, you've acted in several different shows besides Lion King. I don't want to just touch on that one because you've done a lot of cool things. Are there any shows in particular that you've done, doesn't matter what show it is, that there was a particular moment that stuck out in your mind as like, okay, this is super cool, I really love what I do?
You know what? That's happened to me a few times. Because I can kind of tell that sometimes, I mean, in the past, now my parents are on board, but in the past, my parents have kind of been a little worried for me choosing this career. And I'm always reassured. I'm reassured in small ways and in big ways. You know, I could do a workshop for 2 weeks and be completely content. Or I could be doing a show. I got to do a couple of Greek tragedies in Chicago, and the text is so thick and heavy and rich, and it's like you got to take a second and sit down with it. Like, wait, what are we saying? I love that too. I love when it's difficult. I love when it's simple. I love when it's heightened and dramatic. I love everything about it. I feel that way all the time. But one time I got to be the villain, and I was a little scared by how much I enjoyed it.
Oh no.
But I think that was a moment for me. Like, have you heard of Brooklyn the Musical?
Yeah.
So I got a chance to play Paradise, and it was at a community theater in Hammond, Indiana. All the costumes were made in-house, you know, from thrift stores, and we did a whole caution tape dress and everything. But I think doing that show was definitely a moment for me where I was like, this is amazing, you know? And, you know, it's just an audience of, 100, 150 people, but it didn't matter. It was fun.
Oh, that is so cool. And I love how you said about the villain thing, because I find a lot of people kind of like, they're like, I don't know about playing a villain, but it is actually a little bit fun because you get to try something that is completely opposite of you.
Yes, it was fun.
Different clothes. I interviewed somebody who said that they're like, it's like trying on a different shirt in every different role. You get to wear something different.
Yeah, I like that.
So I have to ask this question because this is something I love getting to talk about personally. I feel like everyone thinks that once you get to a certain point that's the only place you can go, that's it, you've reached the top of the mountain. But as creatives, we all still have like a lot of dreams that we want to fulfill. We have people we want to work with, things we want to do. Is there anything that you still see yourself wanting to do, whether it be working with somebody in particular or getting to work on a specific show?
Absolutely. I'm definitely the type of person where it's never over. You know what I mean? Like there's no peak for me. Um, but I got a chance to see If Bill Street Could Talk last year, and that film is so stunning. Like I remember sitting in the theater just watching shot by shot, and the music, the score, and just being in awe with the beauty of it. So for me, um, being involved in a piece of film that feels like art in that way, whether it be directed by Barry Jenkins or not, that would, I don't know if that would be my peak, because like I said, it's hard for me to like claim peaks, but that would be so amazing. And so that's definitely on my bucket list, to be a part of something beautiful like that.
I love that. And it was beautifully shot. So I don't blame you at all. That was amazing. This is something that is kind of a weird topic to talk about because not a lot of people talk about it. But I feel like once we destigmatize it, it's something that kids can work with easier. Mm-hmm. As creatives, we all kind of deal with imposter syndrome a lot of the time. Where we feel like we don't belong where we are at the moment. Do you think that there's like a healthy way where kids can feel what they're feeling, but also remember that maybe it's not particularly the case?
Ooh, you know, I'm still trying to figure that out myself sometimes. It's nice to have a term for it. A friend of mine brought that term to me a few years ago because I was constantly second guessing myself, having a background in opera, not theater, never having taken a dance class until I was like 23, you know, so I definitely feel the imposter syndrome a lot. And what I try to do is remind myself that I am capable, that where I've gotten so far was not just by chance, that I actually put work in, that I made up for lost time, and that's okay. And also just, you know, going back onto what we talked about earlier about rejection and about healthy competition, is that there's enough room for everyone. So if I don't get an opportunity and I start, that imposter syndrome starts coming in, well, you don't deserve it anyway, you didn't, you know, who are you, you know, I just try to remember that it's not true. It's simply not true. And that when I write down all the data, the imposter syndrome doesn't add up. The rest of it makes sense, but me not being who I'm allowed to be and who I've decided to be, it just doesn't add up.
Absolutely. Now, I love what you had just said about, you know, you weren't trained in theatrical, you didn't take a dance class until later on and everything. Did you ever find that it was hard for you to switch from the opera training that you had and jumping into the theatrical training?
Absolutely. I think that the hardest switch was taking myself a little too seriously. And I have a background in the church and in the gospel church. I'm from Georgia, and I went to a small Baptist church most of my life. And I sang in the choir, and the choir was like belting out numbers. The children's choir was belting out numbers every fourth Sunday. And I kind of tapped into some of that kind of singing at first to kind of bridge the gap. But then I realized that that's not sustainable. I was fine until I booked The Lion King. And then I realized that it's not sustainable, you know, 8 shows a week, you know, every week of the year. So I did have to take a few voice lessons and a few voice coachings to kind of bridge the knowledge between that and to figure out how to belt in a new way. And the biggest challenge for me was probably dance, getting comfortable on stage, getting comfortable in my body. You know, in opera, they often make fun of opera singers because they do a park and bark, or basically they stand still and they sing, and they're like, listen to the voice that I've created and worked on for years, that's changing, especially now that the Met films their productions. You're seeing more nuanced performances. Not a dig at opera at all. I love opera, but I just had to figure it out. And I did make mistakes and I had embarrassing moments, but I just took them as, hey, this is what's happening right now. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to learn quick so it doesn't happen again. But yeah, really dance and voice, definitely. The acting part, I've taken a few acting classes and they've helped along the way. But I think that's where the imposter syndrome comes in the most, is because I didn't learn all those special techniques in school. But here we are, in spite of it all.
And that's what matters, in all honesty. But you bring up a good point that I think is so good to touch on, because a lot of the times with anything in entertainment, it's just so deceptively simple for us who are consuming it, because it's there. We don't have to do anything. We just sit back. It's there. But for you, you have to do this 8 times a week. You have to be up there, be on your game and everything. Do you ever find that there's challenges with having to do that night after night?
Oh yeah. There's I am actually terrified of a couple of things. 1, forgetting my lines on stage. 2, getting hurt on stage. And 3, embarrassing myself, which 1 and 2 kind of fall into 3. But so every day before the show, when we were performing, I would just go over everything. I know I've done the show for years. We do the show 8 times a week, but I just don't like to leave room for error. So I would go over everything. And there's been times where things happen on stage. Say, for instance, a costume starts falling apart, or an audience member has a moment that's loud, or they're wearing a reflective vest. For anyone that's listening that goes to a Broadway show, please don't wear reflective gear. We can see it and you just look like a little ghost in the background. It's very distracting. Or something might happen with the sound, or and I've learned over time that anything is possible. Anything is possible, and to just try to stay calm within and still keep the performance. I was singing the end of Shadowland, which is done downstage, and downstage means at the very front of the stage, and right where the aisle is in the theater. And someone was running down the aisle. And now that I know, they were probably running back to their seat, but in the moment when you're on stage and you're singing and someone is running towards you down the aisle, it is very terrifying. So I just try to stay in the moment and try not to let things shake me up too bad. But I am human, so.
And note to everyone watching, don't run during a Broadway show. You might scare the actors.
Don't do that.
So just a couple more questions for you before I'm able to show you what I was working on over here.
Oh my gosh, okay.
So, I feel like there's a lot of lessons that we learn throughout our career that maybe we didn't know when we started out, and it would have been super helpful for us. Are there any lessons that stick out in your mind particularly where you know them now and you wish you would have known them when you started?
It's okay to mess up. It doesn't mean you won't book the job. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable with your castmates, to be vulnerable on stage, to be vulnerable even in the audition room. It's okay. And it's okay to be bold, to try something new, to step outside of the box, to just be vibrant and bold and memorable. It's okay. It's actually great. And You know, maybe you'll make a mistake here and there. It's fine. But yeah, I wish I had known that and I was able to rock with those things, you know, before, you know, but there's still time.
There's always time, and that's a wonderful thing. I think that's a great thing to think about because we tend to forget that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So my last question for you, this is one of my all-time favorites that I get to ask because it's such an important one. If there's a kid out there right now watching this, if there's a young adult or even an adult who is now very interested or looking to get into the same type of career that you have, what is one thing that you think they should walk away from watching this learning?
I really like that question because someone always has a different answer. And for what I do, what I've come to realize is that, you know how when you're growing up and everyone says that you're unique and, you know, you're special and there's no one in this world like you?
Yeah.
That's actually true. And if we rest in that, and if we continue to believe that and use that when we do this work, especially in this profession, then you don't have to pretend. You can just be you. And by being you, you'll be unique. You will stand out. And I think that that's important because, you know, at the end of the day, people are looking for a real connection. That's what's so great about live theater, is that you get to see real people having real connections with each other. And because of that relationship, you're able to connect to them too. And so if you're off pretending to be someone else, I promise you there's no real connection happening. And so for me, my advice to you, whoever is out there watching and is curious about this crazy world of theater, is to just be yourself. It is that simple. And whatever you can apply to your characters that is real and authentic to you, take it with you. But please, always just be who you are.
Absolutely. I love that so much. And thank you so much for sharing that, because I feel like that's something that I don't hear often on this show, about being yourself, because I think that's more important than anything else when it comes to any type of art in general. So great lesson to walk away with. I hope everybody learns from this and enjoys this episode. And now comes my favorite part, where I get to show you what I was able to make of you while you were talking. I'm going to give you the fair warning that the lights may mess with the color a little bit, so I will send you the actual copy of it, but I'm going to try to get this up in there.
Oh my gosh. That is beautiful.
Thank
wow. You were so talented. I don't even know how you gave an interview and then drew. I have no idea how you do that.
That is honest. I just tell everyone, I'm like, I blank out, I let the adrenaline take over. I don't know what's going on.
You're like, my lips are moving, I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I really don't. Until I go back and watch them when they get edited, I have no idea what I said or did. So.
Oh man, it's beautiful, and you made me look like a Disney princess. I'm very excited about that.
That's always my goal. If somebody says that they look like a Disney character, I'm happy. That's
yes,
a great moment for me. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing such wonderful information and stories with us. They were absolutely incredible. And thank you so much again to everyone who tuned in. Again, I'm your host and in-house artist, Erin Leffler. Catch you next time on the drawing board. I have to know where to cut it, so I'm like, the hands work for now. We're going to use the hands, because I don't have one of those clickers yet.
Oh my gosh, this was so much fun.